Hello, everyone, and welcome. I'm here with Ari Moshe, and we just wanted to talk a little bit about the upcoming energies. In addition to being in between eclipses, so we had the first, the full moon eclipse, the Libra moon that happened last week. We're moving towards the total solar eclipse on April 8th, which is a very significant astrological event. Probably you've heard tons of people talk about it. But what's more important in this interim time is the way that the Mars function is being activated. And that includes both the transiting planets that are in the sign of Aries, which is ruled by Mars, transiting Mars, which is in the sign of Pisces, currently also with Venus and Saturn and Neptune. And how that really fundamentally is asking us to learn how to use that energy wisely. Mars has to do with will, desire, life force, energy. And when we use that in the direction of life itself, life gets created. And when we suppress that energy, when we deny that energy, when we misdirect it, it's when life is destroyed. And this is such a deep and powerful part of our own healing journey. And this eclipse is happening with Chiron on the North Node, with Sun and Moon together. But it's happening after Mercury stations retrograde in the sign of Aries. So there's really a deeper internalization of where, and I know this for myself and in my own life, where I'm reviewing my communications, my words, things that, and it was, I can share a fascinating example. I've been drafting a letter in response to an action that somebody took in a community that I'm a part of. And really the intention of this letter was to really identify that this person's behavior was unacceptable and to call them out and, invite them to learn from their sort of reactivity. And it was a big process that I've been going through over several weeks now, months now, coming to the courage to speak the words that felt true and to be able to do that. And I finally submitted the letter to the group of people for a final review. And it appears as though nobody wants to send the letter anymore because the person that the letter was addressed to was really deeply hurt by something. And so people's compassion and humanity and awareness of how do we treat those who hurt us? Do we cast them out? Do we condemn them? Do we shame them? Do we make them wrong and bad? Do we punish them? Do we blame them? Or do we recognize that forgiveness can't exist without our knowing of our oneness with them? Do we recognize that those who are most deeply hurt, the person who responded to my letter said something to the effect of, sometimes it's the people who are most deeply hurt and hurtful with their actions are the ones who are the most deserving of our love. And that really touched my heart.
That's so good.
So any thoughts you want to share, Ari?
I mean, that reminds me of this one teaching in the course, A Course in Miracles, that says there's really two ways of interpreting all actions, as either love or a call for love. And that's great. It's like such a good ideal. Let's just like be realistic. Like, I think with all the strong Mars Aries energy, there is the possibility of feeling really instigated, really triggered. So that Mars question is basically, if you're not going to use it for attack, if you're not going to be victimized and kind of try to lash back at whatever's hurting or offending or suppressing you, what do you do with that energy? This is sort of like the deeper unraveling and the deeper teaching of all the strong Aries energy right now. So let's offer a couple points on this. Like, we have Mercury stationing retrograde, okay? And then we have that Mars Saturn in Pisces, and we have this eclipse with Chiron, like three really strong Aries energetics. So from three different angles, we're really like looking at our own will, our willpower, how are how do we respond to challenging, stimulating, instigating kind of content? And I think there's just something around, one, being willing to learn from experience. I know for myself, as deeply as I care about my spiritual ideals, there's a threshold of wisdom and maturity that I'm still cultivating in how I respond to challenges, even just like allowing my mind to just kind of tip over enough to actually let myself feel stressful, to let myself feel overwhelmed. We don't realize the extent to which we actually have agency and choice over how we respond. So we think we have no other option but to be angry, but to be stressed. And to some extent, there's just the need to allow ourselves that permission to be a little bit messy. And then just like that beautiful point that you're making, like those that are the most harmful with their actions and words are those that are really the most deserving of love. And one of the things that we learn by reacting is we realize, oh, I too am needing a lot of love. Like that's sort of the gift and the wisdom of Mars. Like we're not going to know what to do with all of this energy. We're not going to be good at it. We're not going to be very refined. And I think with Chiron, it brings up the tenderness of what it's like, the wounds that we create when we are in a violent mindset. That can actually induce a deep sense of humility and compassion and recognition that when we fight back, we're the same exact thing that we're fighting against. So that's, one dimension of it. The other is in this learning process, I think there's a really powerful thread taking us towards purpose. Like a purpose can be like, you can think of purpose like Pisces purpose, like your only purpose is love, like
meaning of life.
But from an Aries point of view, purpose is a much more present moment, individual. What is your path? Right? We have choices to make here. We're confronted with experiences, and they're all like chipping away at our soul from different angles. And from the highest, I had a dream once where I was told, the highest something like the highest interpretation of every experience is to see it as respecting and affirming the fact of your freedom. It's powerful. And I opened up to this teaching today that had something to do with oh no, it was a poem I wrote a long time ago. I opened up my poetry book last night, and I was saying something like, how could this moment be wrong? Even if I've made a choice from ego, from hurt, and it's had its own consequences, the fact that I'm here now must be the turning point where healing begins to happen. So there's something with all of these transits and just like the mess of a lot of instigation and new learning, new insight, new experience. Like, how do I respond to this? What do I do with this? Just appreciating that all of it is taking us to this new present moment where whatever just happened, whatever we did, whatever is done to us, however we respond, it always comes back to right now is potentially, if we can allow ourselves to create space for it, the starting point for where healing begins.
That's beautiful. It reminds me of a message that I received a while back that is said, the ultimate purpose for every relationship is to return you to your source. And, Aries is source. It's the start. It's the seed. It's the initiation of that life force energy. But when we have been operating in our life with that life force energy being inhibited by the past wounds, when you were talking about, I could think of all the times in my life where I've really let my anger drive my expression, and ultimately at the deepest level, there was a part of me that was fearing the loss of love, that was experiencing some pattern or belief about myself that I was unlovable or going to be hurt, or, in some way it's that desire for deeper connection to our source that even in relationships where we're most deeply triggered, those triggers are bringing to the surface those unhealed places. And those unhealed places are pointing us back to where we have not remembered how loved we are, and or not remembered who we are, you know. And in those moments, of course, we can respond and react with anger, with hurt, with being wounded. You know, I think of Virgo Pisces as the victim martyr, you know, victim perpetrator axis. And when we're healing that, we come into that relationship where there isn't the polarity of victim or perpetrator is no longer present. You know, we're also a few days before Easter, and in the Christian tradition, many people take pilgrimage. They fast, they pray in the days coming up, leading up to Easter Sunday. And it's a part of a returning to this energy of being reborn, of allowing what in us has been hurt and wounded and destroyed by the suffering of life, which could have been from others or created by ourselves, to be let go of in this time, and to experience, you know, the renewal of our spirit in a way that's what forgiveness is. It's the ultimate returning of ourself to source, and that allows us to let go of past hurts and move into relationship from a healed place. And I think that so much of what we're dealing with the nodes in Aries Libra is the resolution of these energies, right? And Mercury retrograde is an intensification of soul function relative to communication to accelerate the resolution of conflict. We could consider this a period of time where we are accelerating the resolution of conflict so that we can move forward with clarity, you know, and with peace and with purpose. And if we know that our purpose is to love, you know, or we sense that higher meaning, that higher purpose and direction that our soul is calling us to, then we can act from that place, holding that as our, you know, that's the truth of what's happening now, even in the face of, you know, seeming crisis.
That's really beautiful. Just on that Easter note, as I understand it, Easter is about the resurrection, correct? So there's a lot of focus on the crucifixion, I notice, but the resurrection is sort of like, in my mind, that the higher teaching. It's about the eternity, you know, the fact of being an eternal being, that death really isn't ultimately real, that we actually aren't truly being harmed by all the pain and persecution. I find it fascinating that there's like a really strong focus on the crucifixion part. It says something about our world. But I just love that, giving a lot of attention to the possibility of starting again, completely refreshed, completely renewed. I had this really neat internal moment yesterday where it was some, you know, questions that I've been holding for a while, that, you know, like one of those deeper soul pieces where I just haven't been able to come into a really strong, clear decisiveness about something. And it's from an Aries point of view, it's not very healthy to be in an indecision, because that energy wants to move and it wants clarity of direction. Sometimes it's better to just move and see what happens and learn from it than being in a place where there's no energy being generated, right? It's an unhealthy state of mind. But just identifying where there's fear and hesitation, I had this really beautiful moment. And this to me also speaks to Mars and Pisces really beautifully, especially with Saturn. And I'll preface it with this. If you're a parent, you know that you know what's best for your child, right? Like, if they gave, in the sense of, right, there's still like the parts of their individual which you're discovering, that you can never know them as deeply as they know themselves from within. But from the point of view of, if you're gonna choose what they're gonna eat, if you're gonna buy the food at the grocery, you're not just gonna give them free rein to make those kinds of choices. You know that if they said to you, Daddy, Mommy, make for me what you want me to have for dinner tonight. Right? No problem. No problem. Easy,
So
you know? In enroll me in the daycare that you feel is most appropriate,
this morning.
right? And to have the clarity of that. So I had this really beautiful prayer that emerged for me, which is, do for me what I don't know how to do, decide for me what I don't know how to decide. And it feels a little bit different than tell me what to do. What should I decide? And it feels different than this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm deciding. It's somewhere else in the middle or beyond both of those, where there's like an authentic, humble recognition. I don't even know. I'm not even asking for you to like tell me what to. It's beyond like give me instructions. It's I don't even know how to do this. I need you to be my father, mother right now. I need you to be my parent and to guide me. And when we see the metaphor of our relationship to the divine very much reflected in the metaphor of parents to children, we recognize that we can do that. It's, I think, oftentimes about humility and realizing it's not about having all the answers or needing to have it all figured out, because I don't and no one does. And we don't expect our children to. It's about learning how to defer the guide that will help us and lead us where is best for us. And there's just something in the vibration of that felt really healing for me. It's like both a surrender, but also a total willingness to follow.
I think of that too, because we still have our humanness of what to do with our indecision or what to do with our strong emotion or our anger or feelings. And with all of these planets in Pisces right now, you know, Mars moving towards Saturn, Venus moving towards Neptune, a part of the way that we can be with that is allowing ourselves to be guided towards inspiration. And inspiration is what activates the Mars function to act. And if we're letting our souls be drawn to what inspires us, what reminds us, you know, I took the girls to the ocean. We were sitting on the shore of these little tide pools. And the moment I sat down, I started to hear a song. And it's been months, you know, maybe even a year, I don't know how long, but months since I received a song. And the song just came, and the melody and the lines just came, and it was repeating itself and giving itself in that moment to remind me of something that I'm always connected to. But if we're moving too fast, which can be part of the Mars function, you know, we can miss that which is inspiring us, drawing us to desire, right? And it always comes down to what our purpose as souls to create, whether it's art or music or beauty, whether it's relationships and how we heal and repair relationships, whether it's the work that we're called to do in the world. All of these things are activated and reconnecting ourselves to that inspiration. I'm working from the art gallery today, and it's like such a beautiful moment of inspiration to be here with you and to be reconnecting to that as well.
Yeah. And for clarity, Mars in Pisces is inspired action. And I think that's like, we're not really looking for right or wrong when our actions are inspired. It's almost, that's the point of it. It's like, this is what we're here for, to be inspired and to actually find ourselves as agents of something much greater than ourselves. And I'll just add one more point to this. With all this strong Aries energy, I think underneath this whole process, we're being led somewhere that we simply haven't been before, right?
That's so true.
And that's why the inspiration, but also like the willingness to just really meet the questions and the confusion, the content, the triggers in a slightly different way. And I love what you said around Mercury and Aries being like accelerating resolution of conflict. What a beautiful perspective, you know? And at the same time, it's also the acceleration of conflict. Like
Right. It's
Mercury
things
and
breaking down.
and really being able to see more of the pieces and actually being more stimulated, realizing, oh, there are more questions to ask here, or there are more things to consider, and actually being pushed a little more into leadership and seeing new options, new choices, because there's a sort of status quo that we need to break out of. You know, this is great.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining us, friend.
Thank you. Reminder, my training program has begun. I'm keeping it open for another week or so, just for those that are really called to join as we're in the early segments. So we'll post that in the description below. And thank you for watching.
Yeah, thank you. If there was something from this video that touched your heart, as always, leave it in the comments. We'd love to hear your voice, and give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel, and we look forward to being with you again soon. Bye for now.